Los Angeles police are investigating the shooting of rapper Notorious B.I.G., also known as Biggie Smalls.
Rap star Tupac Shakur last night after a brief life in a rough business. He was 25.
What ended the golden age of hip-hop, and why did the early 2000s sound so different?
Our first guest is a Grammy Award-winning hip-hop artist. Please welcome Jay-Z.
Please welcome P. Diddy. Big Boy and Dre present Outkast.
Please welcome back Nelly. Please welcome Ludacris.
Whoa, whoa, go Charlie. I'm the city of the terrorists. Yes, I'm from New York. What?
By the late 90s, hip-hop was at a crossroads. The East Coast versus West Coast feud had left a permanent scar on the culture, with the tragic losses of Tupac in 96 and the Notorious B.I.G. in 97. With the dust settling and the rap game appearing to shift onto something else, the question was, what's next? The answer: money, influence, expansion. Hip-hop was no longer just street raps, it was a billion-dollar industry. Bad Boy Records, led by P. Diddy, defined the late 90s era, flooding the airwaves with nostalgic, sample-heavy hits, showing off their flashy suits, and rolling out glitzy music videos. Meanwhile, a new generation of MCs emerged, balancing cocky lyricism with mainstream success. Jay-Z, once a hustler in the shadows, was perfecting the art of hustler storytelling. DMX brought a raw, aggressive energy that cut through the glossy aesthetic, and Nas continued to deliver poetic street narratives. Sonically, the late 90s was a crazy mix of worlds, soul samples and rugged drum loops that still dominated, but polished, radio-friendly production was creeping in. This was hip-hop at a crossroads, street versus mainstream, past versus future, and as the 2000s loomed, it was clear hip-hop was bigger than ever, and there was no turning back.
My era of music was the toughest era in hip-hop ever. When I put out songs, I had to go against DMX,
Eminem,
Jay-Z, Eminem, Lil Wayne, 50 Cent, Luda. All of us are fighting for one spot. From 99 to like 2008, 10, it's the hardest era ever to get records.
Southern hip-hop that had once been overlooked was now undeniable. Cash Money Records, led by Juvenile, Lil Wayne and Manny Fresh, and No Limit Records, Master P's empire of independent hustle, were proving that there was a huge cultural shift and new voices taking over mainstream hip-hop. Meanwhile, the sound of hip-hop itself was literally changing every so often. The old soul samples of the early 90s were making room for something new, something futuristic and more unpredictable. No one embodied this more than Timbaland, whose beats sounded like nobody else's, therefore setting him apart from other producers in the game, and his collaborations with Missy Elliott and Aaliyah stamped his position as one of the best in the game. Then came Eminem in 1999. The Slim Shady LP crashed into the mainstream, breaking every mold. A white rapper with undeniable skill, a dark sense of humor, and Dr. Dre's backing, Eminem challenged hip-hop's boundaries and brought an entirely new audience to the culture. Purely from a sound point of view, hip-hop was evolving. Gone were the days of pure boom bap. Electronic elements, double-time flows and futuristic beats were creeping in. Production was becoming crisper, faster and more experimental, laying the groundwork for the club-heavy sound of the 2000s. For years, New York and LA had dominated, but by the early 2000s, the South was running the game. Atlanta, New Orleans and Houston were no longer regional hubs. They were some of the main points in hip-hop's next wave.
There was an era where the South just came and took over. Ludacris, Outkast, it just took over the game, period. Where New York was always on top. Then came these guys, and we was like this. I loved it because the South came with a new sound, a new energy. Crunk music, Little John came over, whole new sound, whole nother energy. The purest New Yorkers were hating on it. The younger world was loving the South here in New York.
But it's like this, though. I'm tired of folks, you know what I'm saying? Them closed-minded folks, you know what I'm saying? It's like we got a demo tape and don't nobody want to hear it, but it's like if the South got something to say, that's all I got to say. Yeah.
Outkast had already broken barriers, but with Stankonia in 2000 and Speakerboxxx The Love Below in 2003, they were pushing hip-hop's boundaries to new artistic heights. Lil Wayne evolved from a teenage Cash Money prodigy into a lyrical force, setting the stage for his legendary run later in the decade. And Ludacris, with his larger-than-life charisma and rapid-fire delivery, became one of the biggest names in the game. And then there was crunk, fueled by Lil Jon's high energy club beats. Crunk literally became the next big thing in the 2000s. Tracks like Get Low and Yeah became anthems, bringing that rowdy, southern energy to clubs and radio stations worldwide. At the same time, the early roots of trap music were forming. T.I. crowned himself the king of the South, while Young Jeezy gave the streets motivational D-boy anthems. Trap's signature 808 Heavy Menace in production was starting to take shape years before it would dominate the 2010s. But if the quote-unquote underground was thriving, so was the mainstream. Artists like Nelly blurred the lines between hip-hop and melody. Country Grammar in 2000 introduced a more melodic, radio-friendly rap style, paving the way for the crossover success of artists like Flo Rida and Drake years later. Then came the street anthem era. Ja Rule mastered the balance of street rhymes and catchy hooks, but 50 Cent had one of rap's biggest debuts ever, as Get Rich or Die Trying dropped in 2003, flipping the script with his bulletproof persona and gritty storytelling. And as a result of their beef, both artists would dominate charts, clubs, and essentially define early 2000s rap.
I got Puff at this party in Philly, and he said he spent $1.5 million. And I told him, I'll throw you a party in LA for $400 that'll rival this party. When he gets there, I said, look at the layup. He said, well, that's the girl from this and that's the girl from... I said, yeah, we all work out here. So the party is blazing, we singing karaoke, it's crazy. I go to my garage, there's a little dude and a tall dude. The little dude say, yo, B, it's like this all the time, like girls and shit like this, crazy. It's nuts. I said, yeah, man, it's crazy. Who are you? Oh, we the Neptunes. Wow. I said, what's your name? He said, my name is Pharrell. I said, yeah, man, I heard of you. I mean, y'all, it's gonna be hot.
Behind the scenes, hip-hop sound was evolving. The new wave going into the 2000s was the Neptunes, made up of Pharrell and Chad Hugo. The duo created a signature sound, spacey, stripped down, and futuristic, but most importantly, successful. From production work on Grinding by The Clips to Hot in Here with Nelly, their beats dominated the airwaves. And then there was Kanye West. Before becoming a superstar, he was an ambitious producer whose soul sample heavy beats helped shape one of hip-hop's greatest albums, The Blueprint. And then as the years went by, his signature chipmunk soul sound would soon become the backbone of an entire era. By the mid-2000s, hip-hop wasn't just popular, it was the dominant force in music. The sound had evolved, the regions had shifted, and the culture had never been bigger. With the rise of MTV, BET, and radio dominance, hip-hop wasn't just heard, it was seen. Music videos became cinematic events filled with luxury cars, private jets, and the latest fashion. Shows like 106 & Park and MTV Cribs gave fans an inside look at the lifestyles of rap's biggest stars, turning artists into icons. Even outside of music, hip-hop's influence was everywhere. Slang and street culture went mainstream, with words like bling and crunk, and sports and hip-hop merged as well, with stars like Allen Iverson embracing the culture with tattoos, braids, and hip-hop inspired fashion. As we had seen in the late 90s where artists rocked Avirex jackets, baggy jeans and Timberland boots, going into the 2000s, bling culture changed everything. Throwback jerseys, grills, iced out chains and diamond encrusted watches became status symbols. Hip-hop's evolution from the late 90s to the early 2000s was more than just a shift in sound. It was a transformation in culture, business, and global influence. The late 90s set the stage. The East Coast versus West Coast rivalry had faded, and a new generation of artists emerged. The underground held onto its raw, lyrical roots, but the mainstream was embracing flash, melody, and innovation. Then came the early 2000s, where hip-hop's reach exploded. Eminem, 50 Cent, and the South took over. New production styles reshaped the sound, and hip-hop became the defining genre of pop culture. Today, the influence of this era is undeniable. The trap sound that started in Atlanta now dominates charts worldwide. Rappers are moguls, shaping industries beyond music. And hip-hop? It's no longer just a genre, it is the culture.